What if you had instant analytics on your PDP images and a faster way to create content that performs better? That's what we're diving into in today's episode, how top brands and retailers are using analytics and automation to stay ahead across retail media and the digital shelf. It's Rapid helps teams scale smarter. They analyze image performance, they help you create optimized assets for retail media networks and the digital shelf, and they integrate directly with PIM and DAM systems for seamless execution. Brands like Pepsi, Mondelez, and Instacart use its Rapid to go beyond basic tools to uncover gaps in PDP and retail media performance by analyzing the images themselves, not just the count. Streamline banner creation across hundreds of formats for Amazon Ads, Walmart Connect, and other retail and social platforms, and launch high-performing content more than 80% faster across e-commerce and marketing channels. If you're buried in manual work or struggling to keep up, this episode and It's Rapid will show you a better way. Visit itsrapid.ai to learn more.
Welcome to Beyond the Shelf with Dave Feinlieb. This show is an open exploration of the people and process behind e-commerce. Through conversations with innovators in the space, we learn the stories of these leaders and their strategies for e-commerce success. We publish new episodes every Tuesday morning, so be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And now, here's your host, Dave Feinlieb. This week, Dave welcomes returning guest Matt Gehring, a seasoned growth advisor, independent brand strategist, and fractional CMO. Matt first appeared on the show in 2024, and since then, he stepped into a new chapter, advising startups and early-stage companies on how to build momentum from the ground up. Matt has had senior marketing and growth roles at Rothy's, Everlane, Dutch, and Lifeforce. He specializes in helping startups go from 0 to 1, crafting consumer insight loops, launching high-impact campaigns, and building teams that know how to execute fast without losing the big picture strategy. Whether advising founders or jumping into hands-on execution, Matt brings a thoughtful, data-backed, and consumer-first approach to growth. Please enjoy Dave's conversation with Matt Gehring.
Matt, welcome back to Beyond the Shelf.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
All right. Exciting to have you back on. Take us back. First off, how'd you get your start in the space?
Oh, man. Sort of by accident, but just kind of fell into marketing, sort of doing analytics type work, site optimization. And then from that, it's just been this, slow build of, managing some paid channels. And then that obviously connects to the site, and then managing more paid channels, and then taking on retention, and then the whole brand. And then, the past 15 years, leading marketing at various sort of, D2C companies, kind of hopping from startup to startup.
You've built marketing both at startups and at larger organizations. Let's start with the startup part. What do you prioritize when you're going from 0 to 1?
You've got to first have alignment on goals, as well as sort of contingencies, or at least like a clear view of that runway. You want to kind of establish, what do you know for certain? What do you think you know? And what are those things I'm not sure about yet? And then with that, kind of look for failing points. So those items that if you don't figure it out, you're going to end the business. Like you're not going to be able to kind of make that next step forward. At that point, you're getting sort of data alignment, sort of what's that source of truth? What are the 2 to 3 kind of key metric drivers? You can build out additional ones that layer down to the teams, but you want that short list of KPIs that are really going to drive the company to that next stage point. It's not like, hey, I want to be a $1 billion brand and have a $1 billion exit. It's like, okay, no, how do I get to, 1,000 customers? And what are those things that are going to get me there?
Yeah.
Then you start to look at like, okay, what's needed from the team, platform tools, spend. On that kind of growth marketing side, I want to make sure that I'm also allotting some time and budget for testing kind of new channels, looking at, 1 or 2 things that could potentially unlock scale. Could be efficiency. It could be finding a new place to reach your target. So a lot of times when I'm coming into a brand, there might be like a core channel that like, okay, all of our customers are coming from this, all of our spends from that. But eventually either that might wane or, algorithm change and all of a sudden like you're out. So you want to have those sort of like backup ones that are going to kind of help you propel additional scale.
Great. And then you shift gears and you're at a growth organization. You've got a larger place. They're already doing some marketing. What's the difference in approach there?
I mean, for there, a lot of it is probably a lot more around processes. Like Rothy's, for example, when I was there, was a lot more established. You had the sort of typical teams and departments in place. Dutch Lifeforce, there was less of that. So it was more of a like, okay, how do we drive scale ASAP, but also get some things in place so there's less disruptive. You get clarity on focus and goals. Both are difficult. Like that established org, they can have a ton of processes in place, but they might not be the right ones anymore. They might be what worked a year ago, but like, hey, we've got to change and do things differently in order to get to that next scale point. And then you've got the whole runway funding issues where, especially pre-product market fit, you have this date kind of looming out there of like, okay, we're going to be out of money here.
Yeah.
And making sure that you've got to be building a way to either extend the runway or understand like, hey, we've got to prove this point in order to get that next round.
When you come into a new role, what do you ask the team or what are you thinking about in terms of those first few weeks or even first couple of months?
I'd probably break it into two things. Like, so from an exec team board perspective, it's usually like one, let me see the daily dashboard. What's the tracker? I'm hoping there is one.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping everybody's using the same one.
Yeah.
Two, it's like, what are our revenue customer goals for the year? Do we have them? How were they determined? Was that like the founder saying like, this is our target with no backup? Or was it actually like a process to kind of determine it?
Yeah.
Also kind of how accurate or successful have they been hitting those in the past? And then the third part kind of on that, like how often do those goals change? When was the last time they change it? Like I'm trying to gauge, do we have a constantly moving target? On my team, assuming there is one, first it's like probe on their goals and like, is there an alignment with those, top goals that the founders pushing? Second, I want to know like what takes up their time each week. Where are they spending their time? What's kind of sucking up their like daily hours? And then third, what's their sense of do they have what's needed to hit their targets? Like what would help them move faster? And that really, it's not even getting into like, can they do the job? It's just like, do we have that clarity? Because if we don't have that clarity, especially at an early stage company, you can't be moving in different directions. So those are kind of my key things, I think, coming in.
This is great. And then where you do have that focus and maybe some dashboards, at least a little bit in place, what's a good example of where that's really, really made a difference? Or maybe the flip side of that is, what are some things you might add to what they've already got to kind of help with the growth?
I mean, if I shape this around sort of like that, like where that kind of getting that focus in place sort of can drive a difference. I'd have to point to Dutch for sure. Like I joined about 4 months in, and into their launch, and we really needed to unlock new customer growth, which is, the problem for every new company. But we had this gorgeous site. We seemed to have a clear customer need, but the issues are sort of twofold. Like our business model wasn't hitting on a key customer pain point. And secondarily, like our channel mix was way too spread out. So we through all of that sort of asking questions and, it was a small team. There was a little bit of a team in place and kind of looking at it. It's like we adjusted the creative and messaging strategy to kind of focus on vet access first, rather than the initial approach they launched with was this sort of product issue all-in-one type solution. So we also ended up adjusting the membership model. Then we put like almost all our focus on where that customer was trying to find the solution right at that point, which is paid search. So it really narrowed this focus down of like, okay, let's go all in on this. And then as we gained traction, we were able to start launching other channels, like going back to my test other areas. And eventually we were able to get back to build sort of solutions for those customers that had that product specific use case.
So focus first, then restart the testing engine.
Yeah.
And that sort of led the way.
Yep.
How did you know what to focus on?
I mean, I was sort of twofold. It was one, starting to talk to customers, which I know you want to hit on eventually. I think the other piece was just, in order to build a business, we've got to have customers. And
yeah,
I think the focus was really on, okay, where's our spend efficiency? Like, we're able to actually find customers and get them to our site. And that looked like, okay, there's volume here, but our conversion rate was horrendous. And digging into the conversion rate and focusing on that was really what unlocked the, like, oh, we're offering the wrong thing. Like, people are bailing, people are abandoning because we're not giving them what they're looking for. And so, like, the site signals around conversion and where fall off was and how people were moving through the funnel kind of helped prompt, talking to those customers of like, okay, what are they actually looking for? And that those two things sort of unlocked. So, typically there is a sort of customer journey funnel view where I'm looking at like, okay, what looks normal? What doesn't make sense? And then, seeing the conversion rate so low, it's like, okay, that seems to be an area. Let's dig into that.
All right. Tell us about customers. Do you go door to door? Do you email them? Do surveys? What's the right approach?
I haven't done door to door yet. That would be interesting. Other than friends, if friends, family, that counts, I guess, as door to door.
Right, right.
My biggest, I guess my approach for, I'd say early stage companies, really any company, it's pick up the phone, hop on a Zoom, spend time with your customers, and if you can, prospects, but I'll start with, those internal assumptions that, kind of like what the team is, what I've compiled as I'm onboarding of why people think they buy from us and whatnot. And then, it's putting together a short list and starting to talk to the customers. And as you kind of start to validate some of those assumptions, you can shift your questioning to other areas. But sometimes you'll unlock an opportunity or customer roadblock that causes you to completely pivot your approach. Kind of what happened at the Dutch of anxiety and allergy were the two big categories we started with. And it was like, hey, why did you come to Dutch to solve your pet allergy needs? And they were like, oh, I didn't. I was trying to talk to a vet. And it was kind of one of those things where but you knew about the allergy. And they're like, yeah, but I needed to see a vet and I couldn't get in it where I'm at. And so that was like, oh, wait a minute. Ultimately, they're here to get allergy medication for their pet. But the need and the messaging and everything was around I want to talk to a vet.
Yeah. You've worked with some of these services where the customer has an initial need, but then you also want to have them continue to engage with your service, the subscription, and so on. What are some of your learnings from that?
I think the big part really is around how do you, it's kind of keep this engagement, especially within, the membership space. It's I'm working to have, you got to nail that first experience, especially as a early stage company, a new company. If you mess up that first experience, you have no chance at keeping them around.
Yeah.
But then really it's about okay, how do I keep them engaged? How do I, get content from them? Because especially like Dutch was a good example where it was kind of an annual membership. You're paying once and you're going to see the vet when you need them. But if I have that person come around and on their annual renewal and they're like, well, wait a minute, I can't remember the last time I talked to them. I don't need this, or I'll just, sign up next time I am. So it's about this kind of, I don't know, what I've done is okay, what content can you do? How can you kind of keep that connection going?
Yeah.
Talk about partner integrations or platform improvements. If a customer hasn't used you for even a more frequent membership model, they might not realize that you launched something new, or like Lifeforce, we had wearables integrations. So if I had signed up before that and I'm an Aura user, and now not knowing that all of my data can get sucked in there and that clinician can use that to help provide me, better service, you've got to kind of do those things. So now all of a sudden it's oh, wait a minute, what I paid for before, there's all this other stuff that it can do now. So hitting that on that. And then the other thing is just simple check-ins. Obviously I can't do a customer call with every single one, but having in a, both Dutch and and Lifeforce, this kind of clinician model, like reach out, like, hey, just checking in to see how you're doing.
Yeah.
Founder emails, those things of just like that kind of like showing that you care, showing a connection, seeing how they're doing something, especially where in my recent world, I'm competing against a model that is not necessarily the most customer centric. So like doing those things to kind of reiterate those things can help.
This episode of Beyond the Shelf is brought to you by It's Rapid. It's Rapid is the platform Pepsi, Mondelez, Instacart, and hundreds of other leading brands and retailers use to build personalized content at scale. Whether that's images, videos, or product descriptions for their product detail pages, shoppable videos or banners for their digital ad campaigns, or sell sheets for sales enablement, brands that use It's Rapid are able to produce high-quality, on-brand content on average more than 80% faster than category competitors. To find out more, please visit itsrapid.ai.
Let's shift gears, talk a little about creative and content and all of that. What do you see working today? And then obviously I also want to talk about AI.
Yeah. Oh, what's working? I would say the biggest thing is like, and it's something that when I see something go wrong, it's usually the cause is like having that creative strategy in place. Like, it's a must-have starting point 90% of the time. If I see a campaign fail and start to ask why, there was usually no initial like creative strategy. So you've got to start with that why, who, how kind of type approach. If I'm trying to get cart abandoners to come back on Cyber Monday to make a purchase, that creative strategy and starting point is totally different than if I'm doing a reach campaign trying to introduce my product to a customer for the first time. So that's important. And then I think the other thing is like you've got to provide your creative team with that solid direction, or you're not going to get quality out. Like I've been in situations where they're like, oh, this agency that we use sucks, or our creative team is no good. And it's like you look in a little bit and it's like, well, you're providing crappy direction. Like you're not telling them what it is. So, and I think it's one thing that's interesting, especially as we start to get into AI, where you can enable, your individual marketers can now sort of do it all. You still have to have kind of some of that same approach in there, or, the AI is going to give you crap out.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. So we've seen, we have lots of great tools now, whether it's for copy or images, even video. First of all, what are you using day to day? Let's start with that.
If I think about my whole team, all like a lot of different things. I've found kind of what you hit on, like the copy and the creative piece has been the design have been the biggest lift. Like at Dutch, it was like almost eliminating the need for photo shoots for a lot of statics and stuff, because our designer was like, I'm going to go figure out how to make pets, look normal, and integrate that, which was, a big, like cost savings. And then, on the copy side, obviously those types of things sort of have been good. But I think the other thing that's been helpful for me has been more around like a lot of the research and being able to kind of use it for ideation. Like one of my creative directors would use it just from like helping kind of kick off some ideas around like, okay, we know these prompts, we know the customer, we know the issue points. Like, hey, comb our competitors, look what else is out there. Like, give us some ideas as a starting point. So it's been a great like brainstorming tool versus a, build an agent or build a really good prompt to just spit out creative like that. I feel like hasn't been as helpful. Like I want that touch point.
Yeah. When we think about AI making the creative itself, it sounds like ideation, it's really working well. And then the insight is I got to have the right direction at the start of this process.
And I would say also like, you've got to map it to your internal team sort of skill set. Like if, as well as the needs of the business, but like if I've got somebody who's, really good at something, let's say, video editing or design, whatever it might be, it's like, okay, how can I use AI to sort of further enable them, like get more out of them? Or what are those things that we could automate? I've also seen situations where And this is kind of like getting into a little bit like, how do you figure out like if a tool is useful or not? Or like there's a lot of creative agencies out there now where you're just like, oh, we'll spit out 50 creatives, a week for you, times X, however many you want to do. And for us, it ended up actually hurting because we had more design iterations than we could actually test. And then it ended up actually causing more work for our content team because there was a big kind of copy input lift for this. It was like, hey, give us all the headlines and talking points and CTAs, and then we'll build out a ton of different creative iterations. So it freed up time on our designer, but then it actually slowed down our content team, which impacted other projects. So it was like, hey, I thought AI was supposed to be like helping us move faster, and it actually slowed us down on some other projects. So
you got to deploy it in the right way.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is great. Tell us about team structure now, maybe again, splitting into two parts, startup stage and then growth stage, especially with AI. How do you think about putting the team together?
I would say a lot of times it's, if I'm starting blank slate, it's kind of, what do we think our lead channels are going to be? And like having the skill set for those. On the site optimization side, or just the website side, is like, what tools are going to be flexible and allow us to work with, various tools out there. I mean, most brands, I would say, are probably going to end up on Shopify. And so you're looking at like the, what apps and things can enable me in that space. And then, what tools are needed to kind of latch onto that. From an overall like individual teams, I'd say like, I'm still going to need a designer. I'm still going to need a copywriter, but now I don't necessarily need a team of 5 of them. I need somebody who's going to be heads down day to day on like that performance marketing channel. Early stage, I'm usually using agencies as well to supplement, or sort of fractional folks. And then that kind of site optimization side, who's making the changes? How can we, find efficiencies there? And then there's an analytics component. I try to let, especially, and this is where the AI tooling can come in, like sort of have everybody sort of function as that consumer insights person now. It isn't until I get a lot larger that I'll end up bringing in a dedicated insights type person. And that also depends, like if you're making your own product or not.
When you do go to think about whether it's AI tools or other tools you're going to bring into your marketing stack now, what are some of the ways you go about doing evaluations?
Kind of how I pointed out before, it really depends on that like team skill set, like what's the need. But really what I'm looking for is like, okay, can this increase the output or reduce the effort level so that we can focus on sort of, other priorities? So, every tool out there now has some kind of AI something. Especially at early stages, like I don't want to be your beta test group. Like I want just have stuff a little bit more established. So I think I look at, what are the proof points? I'm relying a lot on like peer recommendations and other brands of like, hey, what are you using? And then, from that, you kind of figure out what we implement. I mean, a lot of times on my teams, I'm actually getting stuff coming from them of just like, hey, I'm using this, or I'm looking at using this, or I have a friend that was using this. Can I bring that in here? And it's just like, hey, if it's going to enable you, great. And most of the time it's fairly inexpensive, or even brands or, who was it recently? I think Klaviyo even just like, hey, here's all this brand new tool set that you can just use for free, almost from a retention perspective from their standpoint. So I, similar to how I talked about like spending or having some time allotted to testing, channel testing, things like that, I bucket that now into AI of like, everybody on your team needs to be spending some amount of time each week, playing, exploring, utilizing. I've had to do it as well. Like it, the more you use it, the more you sort of figure it out. And it isn't just I don't know. It's almost like learning a language in a way, but you've got to kind of play around with it, and then you can kind of start to, I think, get more value out of it.
Great way to think about it. Well, I'd love to talk through our rapid rundown, a few fast-paced questions. Your quick thoughts. First of all, a new tool or platform you're loving right now.
Probably say Evolve AI. So it's EVOLV. It's a testing platform, but there's a lot of AI integrations. There's a lot of sort of this idea of like I can ideate, prototype, do A/B tests all in there without a lot of dev support. So it was something I brought on at Dutch, and it completely unlocked a ton of sort of CRO conversion improvements.
A common mistake early stage brands make with customer insights.
Most common one is probably that they're not having any conversations, but if they are, I think the biggest mistake I see is treating like a few initial like pain points or comments as like proof, and then just sprinting off in that direction without continual follow-up. Like your early customers are probably going to be more forgiving of issues that you have. They might be paying for features or products that you can't actually scale to a large audience. So it's usually just like, oh, 2 customers said this, let's go now build for that, versus like, okay, wait, let's keep checking along the way.
I like it. Favorite brand experience you've had recently as a consumer?
A little self-serving. It's a company that I've been involved with for a long time, Beanbox. So it's a subscription coffee business, but really focused around the benefits of fresh roasted beans. And they recently switched their model to now source and deliver beans from almost any roaster across the US. So it's opened up a ton of varieties. And I just found out like one of my favorite coffee spots in New York, Devoción, is now on their platform. So now I can get their beans freshly roasted, delivered to me, instead of on my, 2 or 3 trips to New York a year. So,
right. This is a great one. And your go-to recharge ritual after a heavy week of working on marketing?
Get outside, go hike, get some elevation. Like, I live in Palm Springs and like the mountains here, which is funny. Most people don't realize that there's mountains, but, just climbing up and just kind of, hanging out's a good sort of perspective, as well as like, I feel it definitely recharges me.
Matt, if our listeners want to reach you online, what's the best way for them to do that?
LinkedIn's always probably the easiest. My email as well, constantly on both.
Well, so great to have you back on Beyond the Shelf. Always a pleasure. I learned a ton every time I talk to you about what to do, what not to do. And also, I think your insight on just working with the latest tools and making some time to do that and thinking of it in a little bit like a new language. That's a great way to be thinking about it. So
awesome. Yeah.
Thanks again. All right. Great to have you on the show. We'll talk to you again soon.
All right. Thanks.
That's it for this week's episode of Beyond the Shelf. If you enjoy the show, be sure to like, subscribe, and leave us a review. It really helps us grow. And feel free to share us with your colleagues so they too can hear weekly perspectives from the brightest minds in e-commerce. You can also check us out on LinkedIn, where we post clips from each episode, share Dave's takes on breaking industry news, and much more. Beyond the Shelf is a production of It's Rapid. Our host is Dave Feinlieb, and our producers are Sean Levy-Ashvili and Jake Musiker. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Beyond the Shelf.